Briefly, tell us about yourself and why you're running for the leadership of the Alberta New Democratic Party.
Well, the reason I'm running for the leadership of the NDP is because I believe Albertans truly deserve a better choice than a choice between the corruption of the Conservatives on one hand and the extremism of the Wild Rose on the other. In the last election, a great number of Albertans actually tried to vote for progressive Alberta, and they didn't get what they voted for. And so this time, I think there's an opportunity for the NDP, under the right leadership, to present the real progressive choice to Albertans, one where they know they can give their vote to the NDP, led by me, and know that that vote is one that they can trust will go towards ensuring that their vision for a fair, prosperous Alberta in the future will in fact be advocated for consistently and with integrity and with effectiveness over the course of the next 4 years. I have the leadership skills and I think a history of success in the legislature that I believe will help bring Albertans to the NDP, believing that they have a credible place to put their vote.
Briefly tell us about the general views of education in Alberta and the priorities that you see for public education.
Well, of course, I care passionately about our public education system, so this is actually something I could talk about for a very long time. But there's a number of things that we need to do immediately to make sure that we have the best public education system possible. First of all, we have to stop this yo-yo of funding in our system of education. We need to have stable, predictable funding that administrators and teachers, frankly, can plan around in order to provide the best education experience for Alberta's children. We need to ensure that teacher workload is addressed, because it's not just about teacher workload, it's also about class size and the quality of education that Alberta children receive. And so we need to go back to some of the principles that we saw in the Learning Commission in the early 2000s and recommit ourselves to the vision that was articulated at that time. I believe very strongly in the need to provide proper special needs education, whether it be for special needs children or ELL children or any other children who have special learning needs. We need to do a better job of that. Setting the direction, unfortunately, was a system that resulted in inclusion with no complementary resources to support that. And the outcome has been that teachers are working far harder, and students, not only special needs students, but other students as well, are suffering. So we need to go back to the drawing board on that. We need to look at more resources. We need to look at more professional support, not only for teachers, but for educational assistants. And we need to do that in consultation with the profession. Another thing that matters a great deal to me as we go forward with our education system is early education. This government promised us full-day kindergarten. They broke that promise. That was wrong. We are the second worst performing province for early education in the country, and that is shameful given how wealthy we are. So that needs to be fixed. The final thing that I want to talk about, because you said to be brief, is this, that our education and the public nature of our education system is fundamentally important. Government dollars should not be going into private schools. They should be going into public schools. And so we would restructure funding that way, because we need to encourage more participation in our public education system, not less.
Unstable education funding over the past few years has resulted in teacher cuts, larger classes, reduced support for special needs students. How will your government, under your leadership, ensure stable, predictable, and adequate funding for our schools?
Well, the fact of the matter is that the question of whether we have stable, predictable funding is a political question. And it comes down to whether the government is prepared to raise the revenues that are necessary to devote the resources that are necessary to public education in alignment with what we know almost all Albertans believe to be one of the most important things that government does. So the way we do that then is we actually look at fixing the revenue problem in Alberta. We are one of the wealthiest jurisdictions in the Western world, quite honestly, and it is ridiculous that we are lurching from budget to budget. a little bit of money here, a little bit of extra money there, suddenly no money there. It's a shameful way to manage a province with as many resources as we have. So we need to do two things. We need to get rid of the flat tax and introduce a progressive tax system. And the other thing we need to do is we need to start getting fair value for the resources that we as Albertans own, because those resources will only be here for so long. And what better way to ensure our prosperity in the future than to ensure that we provide the kind of quality education to our children and their children that will ensure that they're able to bring Alberta through this particular economic model into another one going forward. So you raise the money and then you legislate a budget cycle, and you ensure that key stakeholders are part of the consultative process in the course of establishing that budget cycle.
The Task Force on Teaching Excellence report has raised a number of issues in regard to governance and regulation of the teaching profession. What would your government, under your leadership, recommend or abandon from the report?
Well, I think the issue with the Teaching Task Force goes fairly deep, and it starts with the fact that the people that were part of it were not the right people, and there wasn't the appropriate consultation and transparency with respect to the province. So I don't know that that particular group of people produced a particularly effective document when it comes to reflecting the primary concerns of Albertans, parents, teachers, and community leaders. So really, what I'm going to talk about is what I don't like about the Teaching Task Force. The notion that we need to suddenly upend the historical role of the ATA in terms of ensuring professionalism seemed to come out of nowhere and is not a priority for Albertans. So it's not something that I have any interest in pursuing. The quiet hints of approaching issues of merit pay are something that have proven to be absolutely disastrous in other jurisdictions where they've been implemented. And that, again, is another thing which needs to be rejected out of hand. Honestly, when we look at teaching and improving the professionalism of teachers, I think what we need to do is focus on workload, class size, and opportunities for professional development, and then ensuring that teachers are part of the consultation process as the system is evolving or being modified or moving forward. We always have to ensure that teachers are part of that. And if you look at those key elements, then you're going to be successful at ensuring that teachers are able to do the best job possible at educating our kids.
The Inspiring Education Initiative was designed to further transform education in Alberta, as it is viewed as one of the top performing systems globally. What elements of Inspiring Education do you think need to be maintained, and what should be adjusted?
Well, I think probably the best thing that we saw through Inspiring Education was the level of consultation with the profession. And I think that value probably was fairly clearly articulated throughout that process. So that part of it, and those parts of the recommendations and the plan forward that talked about that continues to be important, that we need to work collaboratively with the teaching profession in terms of improving our education system in Alberta, and we need to ensure that we're looking at developing curriculum and making decisions about how we teach and where we teach and what tools we use when we teach, with reference to the best science, the best research out there. So that's really important. The frustration I have with Inspiring Education was that, honestly, not a great deal of it was very specific. And so there were a lot of vague general assurances that could then be recharacterized or exploited and turned into something else. And that seems to be what's happened in the last few years. The fact of the matter is that education has not improved since Inspiring Education. It has deteriorated. So I think we need to go back to the table with the key stakeholders. We need to include the teaching profession as critical players in that process. And based on what the research tells us is the best way, the best practice of delivering education, we need to focus on achieving that, and we need to fund it appropriately. So that's my thought on that.
Do you have any final thoughts to leave for Alberta teachers?
Well, in terms of final comments, too, first of all, just I want to talk a little bit about one other specific issue, which I haven't had a chance to yet, and that's infrastructure. We need to build more schools in Alberta. We need to properly maintain the schools that we have, and we need to do that with respect for community integrity and ensuring that communities are maintained as we place, upgrade, and build new schools. Having talked about that, just going forward, this is a really exciting time in Alberta politics. I think that we are in for change, but I really believe that the vast majority of Albertans don't align with the traditional values of the Conservative parties, either one of them. I think Albertans' values have moved beyond those Conservative parties. And I think that now is the time for all Albertans who want to see something different, for all of us to come together and demonstrate the courage to say, you know what, it can be better. And we're going to vote for something different, and we're going to vote for someone else that we trust to preserve those elements of our province that are so dear to us. Our public sector, our public interest, the future of our children, the future of our healthcare system, the sustainability of our economy and the health of our environment. These are all things that are so achievable in this province, while at the same time ensuring that everyone has a fair opportunity. I think that the NDP can be that party. I think I can lead the NDP to be that party, and I hope you'll consider supporting me, and I hope you'll consider voting NDP in the next election.